Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today is a very special episode. In the studio with me, I have performance advisor, performance coach, all-round awesome human, and my personal mentor, Mark Dobbo Dobson.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. How are you today?
I'm dying inside.
Okay, this blows my mind because you speak for a living, Dobbo.
I do. Yes. I will be in charge of huge audiences with huge budgets and fireworks before, but there I'm helping them. It's actually never about me. I don't want the attention. I hate the attention.
That is so funny.
I'm only here because you asked me and I was uncomfortable at the idea. So I thought, I probably have to do it. Because at first, ages ago, I said, yeah, I'll be on your show. But then I was like, hang on. There's that behind the smile shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that really, actually.
That's actually raw. That's like a deeper level.
Yeah. So if for everybody, like when I get asked questions about myself and I'm uncomfortable, I get all bristly. So I actually tell people, just don't bother interviewing me. I become unpleasant. So I'm like doing my best. I'm going to be like really relaxed. I'm going to trust you, Ash.
Yes.
And it's going to be fine.
Well, I feel like considering for how long we've known each other, hopefully you'll feel safe in this space.
Yeah.
And that will enable you to be able to drop in and just feel like it's two people having a chat. Because we have known each other a long time, right?
Yeah, since I guess you were 13 or something when I was hanging out with your dad, and because he was at St Kilda. And actually he was running a big company at the time, and my dad worked for your dad.
Is that how it originally
Yeah,
connection?
and then I don't know how I came along to something, and then they saw me do something, and then your dad and Tony and Alan, they were like, how do we get Mark involved in the company? And Dad said, unfortunately, he's not motivated by money. Because, that's the way they got everybody. And it was a big, commercial machine. And then your dad actually brought me in to help Cam and be around Cam.
Yeah.
And then I ended up knowing your whole family through the process.
Yeah. And it's been quite a wild ride. I mean,
Yeah.
we were chatting off air before, and you've been there for some pretty significant moments in my life. And, one that comes to mind straight off the bat is when I was about 14, I was performing in The Wizard of Oz, and we were actually doing our full dress rehearsal run through before the opening night. And this is what, when I look back at my childhood and I think about my traumas, this was definitely a traumatic evening and something that's stayed with me. Basically what had happened was one of the boys from the brother school of my school, he had been part of the ensemble in the performance and he hadn't shown up for the dress rehearsal. And then he actually arrived on school property with a knife, and we ended up going into a complete lockdown in the theatre. And I remember teachers were calling parents and nobody could get onto my parents. But my brother answered the phone. And so my brother, who was like 16 at the time, got the keys to Dad's Benz, jumped in the car, drove to the school, picked me up, and then he called you. And you were waiting at our house when we got back there. And you sat with me that night until Mum and Dad eventually came home.
Yeah, I don't know why I do that shit, but I do. I've always done that.
Yeah.
I remember that too. I remember. There's just something when I used to tell people who are just trying to work out how to be comfortable on the train or something that I reckon there's two kinds of people in the world. There's people who are eyes up and eyes down. So you might be on the train, there might be a lot of people around. So there's this illusion that you're safe. But if you feel like somebody comes and sits next to you and it's a bit weird, there's that person that you feel like it's unstable, you got to look around, and if anybody looks in the eye, they're an eyes up person. They're basically by looking at you saying, hey, I see this situation too. But other people look down, and they're there, but they're not going to contribute. And I think I've always just been an eyes up person if I can step into it. But if you created the crap, I just don't even bother, because I can't. You got to have some. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
But in that circumstance, I do remember that night. It was a bit wild, and I think you sort of find out who can handle. There's lots of things that you need from your friends, but I think you can find out who can handle a difficult position, or often who can handle something that's uncomfortable like death, talking about death, right? Or fear or, and I think that, that's me. I can handle some of those things. They're not hard.
Well, it's something that we're going to dive into a little bit later in the conversation today, is this idea of adversity and facing hard things and how they define you, because I think that's something that is quite a skill set for you. So we will talk about that, but there's a way we kick off the show, and I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to my audience if we didn't start with the 3 simple questions to allow everyone to get to know you, Dobbo. So could you please share with our audience, where do you live, what does an average day look like, and what do you do for fun?
Okay, so I live in Frankston South, but I just say Mount Eliza. It's right on the border, and
Frankston South is beautiful these days.
yeah, it is.
It's still a bit rough and tumble.
Not in our little patch.
Yeah, nice.
We moved in and just suddenly it's all 5-star. So I live there. The next question is what do I day to day? What does it look like?
Yeah, what does an average day look like?
I have a bunch of clients that I'm critical advisor in growing their business. So I'll have scheduled calls scattered through, say, Monday and Tuesday, where basically you've got the most senior people saying, these are our strategic plans, what are we working on? And then I'll also often be prepping, because often later in the week I'm doing a keynote somewhere in the country, typically, and that just needs some prep, that just needs either a custom deck made or something. And somehow life gets really full. My days are quite short. I have to get the kids to school in the morning, and as a household, that's just the hardest thing in my whole day. And then the school finishes. At the moment, because of where we live, I work from home, really, because the office space in that area, they just cannot find a good deal. So people can contact me, but it's just a mess. So my life's a bit disjointed, but a lot of it's on calls. And generally, every time I'm talking to someone, it's a problem. Everybody calls me with a problem. It can be pretty overwhelming, actually. Sometimes you just go, God, does anybody just want to celebrate something?
Yeah, I imagine from an energetic standpoint, there'd be a lot of heavy energy in that.
The heaviness is when we revisit the same problem.
Sure.
Like when someone's like, well, what do you mean they didn't do it? And a lot of people have got some sort of thing they're avoiding doing, and that becomes a hindrance. And so that becomes the issue. You've got to try to work out why won't that person take that action? And if it's not in their nature, that's fine. Then we've got to come up with another plan. But sometimes they say that one thing, but they do another. And then what do I have for fun? Do for fun?
Yeah.
I don't know when you said that. That's not easy. Brona and I love entertaining. So we've got a table that extends both inside and outside. The pool area is awesome. So if anything, it's having people over. We love that. And if it's me personally, I usually get lost in making something. I can swing a hammer. I don't care if I'm fixing a kid's toys, or I don't care if I'm building a set of shelves or digging a hole.
That's what I was going to say. When I think of you, often when I hear you talking about what you're doing on the weekend, you're making something, building something. There's kids involved.
I need to build a fence or something. But then, on the weekends, you're doing a lot of kid things, and you have fun with the kids the most when you have no other job to do. It's really difficult. They want 100%. So if you haven't done that thing and you haven't scratched your own itch, it gets really tricky. So I think other parents would appreciate that. Yeah,
and particularly, I know you've just finished writing a book recently.
Yeah, I did.
What's the name of that book?
It's called No Wasted Effort, and it's how to get a disproportionate return on effort, in that most people think when they're about performance that you scale things up. We've got big figures for our business, so let's have a big meeting and bring everybody in. And performance doesn't work like that. It's actually the elimination. It's always smaller. It's no effort is ever wasted. If you are wasting it, you must solve that, because you cannot be elite. You literally cannot win an Olympic medal wasting effort somewhere.
And you've helped people win Olympic medals. That's one of your specialties.
I have. I've had athletes the last 4 Olympics. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's 4, something like that.
And so let's circle back to that idea then, even the process of writing your book, and you've got little humans at home, and one thing that you're really good at is time management and time blocking, and you've helped me a lot with that. I'm in the process of writing my book. How do you manage that? How did you even learn that skill?
I don't know. How did I learn the skill of time? When I was a kid, I had an old dot matrix printer, and it would print out the long banners, and I printed out world class, and I stuck it up on the wall. But by the time I got to class, there's no S's. It was just worn out. And I think like time is always a reflection of what you're ultimately trying to do. So if I am having guests over and I want the house clean, then I find a way. And so often when people have a diary full of silly things, they actually don't know what they want instead. And in one of the chapters in the book, I think says something along the lines of, how did this shit get in my diary? And I think for me, I've learned that a difficult conversation somewhere is actually not as hard as you think it is, but to be able to say to someone, hey, I know you when you showed that person my phone number, that's probably wasn't the thing to do. But if I say, could you do this instead next time, then it's not rude, because it's not like a no. So, and I really know that whatever I'm doing with my diary, like that's my life. Do I really want to do this?
So where do you then sit on values and visions and goals? Because for me at the start of this year, when I mapped all of that out, what I then did was I referenced back my calendar and I looked at my day-to-day life and I asked the question on each coloured block in my calendar, is this in service to those goals?
That's right. That's exactly what I do. The challenge is that busy is the illusion of value, right? And so what I would do with the calendar, I'm working on a book on this and I could talk about this for like months and years. So the short version is, if I've got some sort of objective, which say it's double my business or win a medal or even have a really healthy relationship with somebody in my life, like it can be really normal things, like asking your partner what you want for dinner, that's a vision, right? And then say, well, Thai, well, now we make actions in my, and now I drive to get Thai food. Like it's very simple. People sort of romanticize it a bit. Vision's always just what you desire. Like what do you ultimately desire or what do you want? It's pretty simple. I will look at it in my diary though from two lenses. There's some things I'm doing and it's fixing business as usual. So let's say I have a podcast or I already got a business or I've got a gym and I've got an exercise routine. I might think, I need to clean up the gym or I need to get that new hard drive for the podcast. That's all business as usual. And you're always going to do that. But in doing so, you have the illusion that you've moved forward, but you're only really just cleaned up whatever you're doing now. And then there's other things where, hey, that activity is an actual chess move to create something else in a few years. And those things are harder to put in your diary. And we just wonder why something hasn't moved forward. But my rule is show me your diary and I'll tell you the future.
A lot of our listeners are people who are either making big shifts in their life or they've made the shift and now they're learning how to live life in this new space, whether that's stepping into recovery, removing alcohol, overcoming some sort of mental health or trauma in their life. I always say that you need to be able to spend time with yourself, to work on yourself, to be able to even get clear on what the vision is. Because I know for me, what I thought my vision was when I was still in active addiction versus what my life looks like today, it's almost like I was on the complete wrong train track. But I was driving that train really fast. I was in the conductor's seat. I was like, zhoof, heading that way. And I was on a completely wrong track. And it's only been in actually slowing down, pulling the brake back and starting to find practices where I actually sit with myself, reflect on who I am, what I want, what fills me up, what my values are as a person, because even they have changed, that I've been able to actually get into the path which I believe is the one that the universe had always wanted me on in the first place. How much of that do you think is important for people to be able to spend that time getting really clear? Because I think a lot of people don't even know where to start when they're going, what are my values? Yeah,
but the way to start is you just pick some book that you've enjoyed reading. Like, so for example, especially if it's the 4-hour work week or principles of success, or, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter who your guru is, right? But I would take that book and I would just do the exercise the person said. And I would just jot down the questions and just ponder it and try to solve it over time. And you might land on 60% of the answers or 80% of the answers. I think that we need to have, like you said at the start of the show, there's 3 questions, answer these 3 questions. I think when people are looking to know themselves, they don't know what success looks like. So if you take any framework at all, it doesn't matter if it's a good one or a crap one, and it asks a bunch of questions, then just answer those questions. And you'll put down a draft and you'll show it to somebody and their face will kind of twist a little bit and go, oh, and you'll die inside. Oh, I guess it's not right. Like when I came up with the title for the book, I had so many. I would have had maybe 100 different variations. And I'd trim them down, and then I gave it to a friend of mine, and he's really high profile actually. And I said, hey, can you give me really violent feedback on this? Because people are also nice.
Yeah, which is not helpful in that instance.
Yeah. And if you gave me the feedback after I'd printed the book, that would be a problem, right?
Totally.
So you're allowed to give yourself like this 6-week window to answer the questions. People think they need to be answered today, but just give you a chunk of time. Go, hey, I'm going to answer this framework over this period of time.
Yeah, no, I think what really landed for me as you were sharing that was, I think in this world today, you know, we live in an incredible time where we have access to so much information, but it's almost too much information. And where I see people get paralyzed in their own personal development growth is reading all the books and not taking any of the action.
100%.
Like just what about just focusing on one book that, like you said, really resonates with you? Like The Power of Now came straight into my mind.
Great one.
And then actually, well, how do I now start to implement this? And just stay with it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Live it, breathe it, embody it.
Everybody looks for the next book and it's just another sugar hit.
Yeah.
So I'll go to a conference and I finish the conference saying, hey, I'll speak for anything from 45 minutes to like multiple days. Like some companies have me for 3 days, right? The whole 3 days. And at the end of it, I'll always draw the say diagram. I'll say, when you came in, your mood was like this, you know, pretty low. And then you thought a new idea and go, that's pretty good. And your mood goes up until eventually it's really high and you're, I believe I can fly. And I say to them, but you didn't do shit. I did all the work. You're just sitting there. I'm like, you're going to go back out and you're going to check your emails and you're going to go back to your old habits. Like, so you need to work out like one thing that you're going to do that might change things.
It's so similar when somebody comes to a breath work. Like they come into the space, which firstly, amazing. To even book the ticket, I think is a huge win because many people don't even get that far. But you've booked the ticket, you show up to the event, whether that's a 1-day event, a retreat, whatever it is, and you get immersed in the experience. You get a shifted state of being. But then if there's no follow-up, if there's no integration, then you just go back to where you started.
Yeah. The strategy there is to schedule time for the integration. Right? So if I do a conference, I'll flag right at the start of my presentation, as we're doing this, you'll need to think through an hour next week or a half a day where you can execute on these things, because you're going to have a long list of all the things that you want to do, but they don't actually get up in the diary.
Yes.
And then you feel bad about yourself.
So true. This is something that I will put my hand up and admit that I've really had to work on, particularly the last few years. There was a period where I was flying up to the Gold Coast quite a lot. And I was doing these conferences, and then I would come back on a Sunday night and I'd go straight back into my work week. And this is when I was working for myself, no one else to answer for, but that's just how hardcore I was being with myself. And I was doing such a disservice because then that integration of all of the amazing things that I've learned, it was almost like they were just getting put into a filing cabinet somewhere in the back of my mind and no real change was happening.
Yeah, so the way I learnt it, I would go across to America, work on the American summer camps particularly, and then I would have a great time, or just a regular holiday, but I used to travel a lot for 10 years, just mainly for fun. And then I would come home and I would get really flat and I wasn't integrating back. And every time I went, I would try something new to integrate next time. And eventually I was able to fly between both places and have it be a smooth without the dips. And I think that when you go on a conference like that, you go and you try something and it doesn't work, and then people think, oh, I'm terrible at it and feel bad. You got to try it you got to constantly try it until eventually integration is a strength. So you said at the start of this, like, you know, you're really good with your time management, and I am. And I said that somewhere a while ago, not self-promoting, just off the cuff. I just said it to a group of about 6 CEOs. I was workshopping, and the guy just stopped me and said, no one in the world says they're good with their time. And he said, so you must be. But it was the time thing and the integration thing were two things I look back into my life that I really focused on mastering because I knew how critical they were.
Have you ever been someone that's used busyness as a mask? I'm sure you see it every day.
Probably when I was young. I definitely remember a time I was helping somebody run an event. I think I must have coached this woman or something, and then they were running some sort of event. It was in a farm. It was nighttime or something, and it was a carnival fundraiser or something, and then my phone rang. So I picked it up and answered it, and nobody was there. And I'd made some sort of mistake, and I just talked because I was embarrassed. I remember just talking and going, no. And then hanging up, and later I'm going, it's nighttime. They can hear every single thing, where there's just no ambient noise. And realising they all would have known that I did that. And I remember thinking, what did you do that for? Like, I still cringe about that today. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? So I don't think it wasn't as extreme as some people, but when you're looking for your own identity, you go through these periods where you're clumsy. It's like when you're growing into yourself. You
like the baby giraffe with the
like a baby giraffe.
legs.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. It's like you're trying a new thing, and there's little things pop up, and you lose your composure until eventually it becomes natural. Like I liken it to tying shoelaces, that you learn a process. But eventually, if you watch people tie shoelaces, every single person does it differently. They've all got something that's unique to what suits them. So you're searching for that, and you're clumsy for a while.
And it's okay to keep trying and putting on a different outfit and feeling into it. What I mean by that is like a different, for me, that was very much my first few years of sobriety, figuring out who I was, what I liked. I often share on the podcast, I didn't even know what my favorite color was, Dobbo, when I got sober. Like, I was so disconnected from who I really was because I'd been playing a role or a character for 30 years.
And I think too, everybody needs to know that nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what my favorite color is. Right. And because I like color.
Because it could change as well.
Yeah, it's right. And it depends. It's like, and I think that I always talk about the North Star. We have this idea of what success is. And I think that it's a challenge when you try to do something new, whether it be exercise or sobriety or leading a meeting. There's this idea you've got in your head of how success is. And that idea is often not accurate. And therefore we feel like a failure. But like when you go to discover who you are, we never know. Like, we just don't know who we are, and we're just leaning into a new part. Like, I often talk about, my sister Jo. Like, we used to say that when she went on a date, you would never know how funny she was until you dated her, for a few months, and you go, oh my God, she's hilarious, because it's in her, but it's not the first trait. And I think people need to, looking at themselves, just realize, I know I've got this trait. I guess choose which trait's going to come to the fore most easy. I'm going to give it the most time initially. So it's not like you don't trust, or you don't have fun, or you don't, not confident. People get too binary on these things. No, you are confident. It may not happen as often as something else. It's like, I don't crawl either, but I can, right? I walk. So I think it's in search of your identity. There's this just trying on different clothes, and until eventually you find your own version.
I do want to get to your photo, but I'm really enjoying this conversation that we're having, and I've got another question on this. You work with extremely high profile people, CEOs, GMs, and I would imagine, well, actually, maybe not. Tell me, does the topic of fulfillment ever come up? Because I know people listening here today are on that search, that journey. What is my purpose? What fulfills me? Am I the person I used to be? No. So what am I now? Is that a people problem? Is it what do you see? And if somebody is truly unfulfilled, say they've reached their North Star, what they perceive to be this level of success, and it's not it, what do you then say?
Everybody's looking to use all of their intellect and all of their ability. So if you're in a job that doesn't use your intellect, or another word for ability is like doesn't match your nature, you can't sustain it. So you ask someone what do they want to do, and they say, I want to be a CEO of a company. All right, you're like, do you like spreadsheets? Do you like forecasting? Do you like reporting lines? Do you like hiring and firing? And do you like losing sleep? Do you like pitching to investors and borrowing money? And it all sounds cool, but could you sustain it? So when someone's unfulfilled, it's usually because there's something in their nature that's not met. So there's a really good test on this. It's called the Sparker type, and it's a Spark E type, and it's free. And when I first did it, I was like, it's just junk. Because I've done a gazillion of these tests, like a gazillion. And then I couldn't stop thinking about the answers. It was so simple. But it says, for example, for me, the first thing I am in my nature is a sage, which is a teacher. And I never get tired teaching, ever, ever, ever. I can just teach 24/7. The second thing is I'm a maker. Now, when I was a kid, I studied graphic design and similar, so I was discovering my making. And the thing that I hate doing is that's my anti and deflates me is the scientist, which unpicks a problem over a long period of time. So I might say I want to be a CEO, but that requires me to be a scientist. So I can't sustain it, even if I got invited to do it. So I think often people will see you and go, you'd be really good at this. I'll put you in that role. And logically, it makes sense to you, but you just don't have sustained energy because it's not ticking off intellect and ability.
Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? Something you could be relatively good at something, but deep inside whether or not it's aligned with your soul.
Yeah, well, I think when you're first numb, you can't tell the difference between the two. And so you've got to practice it. And I would say to somebody, like, they'll be like depressed and flat, and I'll say, what do you want for breakfast? And they'll go, I don't know. I don't even want breakfast. I want to get out of bed. I'm like, all right, well, here are your options. You got some Cocoa Pops and you got toast. Does one of those remotely feel a bit better than the other? And at first they distract. They won't answer the question. They'll be like, oh, but this. And I'm like, no, but the question. And eventually they'll say, toast, I think. And in that moment, they've found the first breadcrumb from the universe saying, this is the way. But they often think their problem is bigger than this question in front of them. Do you want to wear the red shoes or the blue shoes? I don't know. I just look so fat in this. I'm terrible. And I've had this falling out. Yeah, I know. But you've got this micro choice. And each time you do it, you build up the strength for something else later.
Yeah, it's like that idea of chunking it down into this bite size. What's right in front of you? What's the decision? Because all change requires decision and action. Well, it's actually awareness, decision and action.
Yeah.
So if something's feeling way too big or out of alignment, what is the simplest question, the one that's right in front of you?
Yeah, and it's just recognizing those small emotional sensations, and I think we get them beaten out of us.
I also think it's really hard in a corporate setting or in any sort of work environment if you've got like a huge monetary carrot being dangled. Like say you get a position somewhere, you're earning more money than you've ever seen in your life, but you're still not happy. That's really tricky.
Well, it's really tricky, especially if you've got debt, because then you just have to earn
and
that.
Dependence and...
Yeah. And the reality in that circumstance. And I guess that's where my advisory comes in. So I have a performance advisory of sorts. Like I'm a sounding board to really capable people who are trying to achieve unique things. But they're also normal people. Like sometimes they're athletes and they're famous and similar, but other times there's a person who, their company turns over $10 million or $20 million and they go, God, I've built this thing. I'm not really sure what to do next. Or I'm like, well, now everybody's dependent on me and I've got to work out, like, I don't know, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. And the staff asking me these questions and I'm not sure what's next. So it's not always exotic. It sounds exotic from the outside, but it's pretty normal stuff. In that, I've lost my train of thought a little bit on that, but just generally that person, they're trying to there's a strategy that's often missing. There is a strategy there that I would help that person if they're in debt to get out of debt. There's this, they can't feel which one they want, Cocoa Pops or toast, and therefore they feel trapped, and then they got this big carrot, and then they've often got to work at what the parameter is that's restricting them. And rather than keeping the job, which is the solution, they've got to go back and fix a problem. In that example would be the debt, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like people go, if I could lose weight if I had a treadmill in the house. I'm like, you didn't put it on because there was no treadmill, which is actually an example that Anthony Robbins uses, but so I'm just nicking that for a second. But so just on that, I think part of the strategy, do I know how to get out of my trap, not always get a better solution and maintain the trap?
Does that apply in relationships?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So if you were say you'd been married for a long time and you just didn't feel like it was where you were meant to be anymore, how do you bite-size that down?
When it comes to counselling in relationships, often people look for a counsellor and they're not aware that the counselling models that people use, pretty much none of them work. So that's not don't do it, right? There's only really one model work, which is pretty bad because I'm not going to tell you even what it is right now because I can't remember it, but it's really got some real good science around it. And that model is first just be friends,
Mm.
but people are trying to fix really big problems and they think they want to leave, but they've just forgotten that the other person is quite funny, and they've been overwhelmed. So when you chunk it down, it really is just looking for those traits of the sweet person that you did start the relationship with.
The person you fell in love with.
Just look for them and know that they're actually still there, which actually brings us to the photo, which is interesting.
Perfect
Like
segue.
totally by chance. Do you want that now?
Let's do it.
So this is the photo.
Oh, Dobbo.
I know.
Look at you.
It's a photo of me, everyone, when I'm about 3 years old.
We're going to bring it up on the screen so people that are watching the video
Sure.
version of this podcast right now can see the photo that I'm looking at. Wow. So this is a photo from a time in your life when you were hiding behind a smile, presenting one version of yourself externally, but internally.
Not quite.
Well, tell me more about the photo.
So what it is, it's I could not think of a time when I was hiding behind a smile. Not that I was prepared to share, because there are some things that are just not appropriate, right? Like they're just private. But and also they're all work things,
Totally.
right? Like I think it's shit. But when you said I could be any photo, I was like, well, I do keep this on my desk and I keep it next to my bed. This photo of me is about 4 years old. And I'm just wondering who that kid is. Like I literally look deeply into those eyes and go, they're mine. And am I still that person? And then it allows me to know my son, because I'm like, he's that age. And I'm like, I think about having the same nature, not the same knowledge, but the same nature, the same needs. And so when I talk about that person that's in debt or they're overweight or they've got the challenge and they're trying to find themselves and they're just trying to hear it again. I found that photo maybe 6 months or more ago, and I just put it next to my bed, and I'm like, I'm just trying to make sure I remain that same little soul that was in that body and has carried through.
Yeah.
Because there's so much expectation on me day to day. So much. Like in my job, I do promise, but also I'm not allowed to miss. I can never be wrong. Like someone says, I need to win this medal. What do you reckon? You don't go, try this.
We might be able to do it.
Or, it's a merger or a sacking they want my opinion. And that people understand when it's a bit, it's a messy situation. There's just so much expectation, and the result, it can drag me away from myself, because they start to, what do? I call it expectation creep. You're engaged for something and they go, oh, well, now we've got this meeting on this day. Can you join that meeting? Now, I don't really want to join that meeting, right? And when life gets really busy and there's not the same time for thinking, I find I was just like, I was losing the joy, the spark, and so that literally has blue tack on the back of it normally, and it just sticks up and is right behind the computer when I'm doing any kind of call.
I love that you do that, because when I went to rehab, they actually told us to bring a photo of ourselves when we were about that age. And so I did the same, because that version of you is the version, for most of us, that version is the version who existed before the world told us who we needed to be.
That's right.
So there's that authenticity piece. If you want to know who you really are, go back to that version of you before you had any concept of what body shape you needed to have, what hair color you needed to have, what job you needed to have. Children are born without any of these ideas. All of that is learned. And so coming back to that purity within yourself also allows you to be a lot more compassionate within yourself.
Yeah, I think that's largely, it's about the compassion, because I have someone said to me years ago, oh, you've mastered your internal critic. And I had, but I haven't since.
What changed?
I don't know.
Do you think maybe becoming a dad?
I think
the pressure of that, or?
No, actually, I think there's a model that says that you go through 3 stages of life, which is the athlete, Well, you can turn your hand to everything. And you used to even do that at school, right? You're playing volleyball 1 minute, next time you're playing basketball, and someone says, oh, can you fill in for footy? And you say, yeah, sure. And then you become the warrior where you choose something and you get really, really good at it. Now, classically for a man, up until they're about 30, they're just trying lots of things and they're trying to build who they're going to be for the latter era. And then Alison Armstrong's content on this is really strong, talking about when a man goes through a midlife crisis, it's a tunnel between 6 months and 4 years. And your center is gone. It's like you've gone into a cocoon like a caterpillar would, and you're just mush inside. And I had fear for about 4 years. Unfortunately, it took me 4 years to go through mine. And in that time, you're reanalyzing and of all the things that you did and who you are and what you tried and all the skills you learned, like which ones are you going to keep in a way. Mm. And it's like a spiritual audit. So it's not necessarily mental, but it's kind of what you're doing. And then on the other side of it, and it usually happens sort of, for actual fact, by her measure, it happens 13 years after you work out what you want to do for a living. Which is pretty specific, right?
Very.
Right. So anyway, I went through that, and then afterwards, I found I then had decided who I am. And then I had a lens. I could look back at things less naively. Right? So I think my internal critic in some parts was naive. Because you're the warrior. You're like, I will do whatever it takes. Like the AFL football player, right, that says, I'm going to get that ball to the detriment of their body. And then later on they go, man, I probably didn't need to play that last season because his shoulder's ruined. So I think it's partly, I think it's partly like the statesman stage where you have this ability lens to reflect differently. But I do think the skill there for me is forgiveness, self-forgiveness, which is odd because they're only sort of micro things, but you go, why does that still? Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, but that's why, like, when I look at that photo, when you asked me, I was like, yeah, it's probably the photo. And then I look at it to just remind myself, hey, you're that innocent little kid. None of this other stuff really matters. So it's like a little reference point, a spiritual reference point to work out, like you said before, values and stuff like that. I'm like, it's my spiritual reference point. Outside of this, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and in any decision that you make, am I abandoning him in this and allowing that to be the measure?
Yeah, that would be true. Yeah, that's how it is.
So something that you're really good at, Dobbo, that I wanted to talk about today is to bundle it up and phrase it, turning pain into purpose. You know, you're not free from having had your own adversity in life and some pretty traumatic experiences, which you've shared with me over the years. And I'd love to touch on that today because I think it's really relevant for a lot of people listening along. They've been to the end of the earth. They've rode that train right to the end. They've hit their rock bottom, and maybe they haven't had enough yet. But for other people, we've always got a decision. And, you know, the example I use is when my brother-in-law passed away, and it was almost like my brain in that moment decided that I was going to start drinking every single day as a way to cope with that. Whereas someone like you would do something productive in that moment. Explain it for us. And would you mind sharing one of the stories?
Yeah, no, I will. So what's actually talking about stories is when I was at about grade 5, I saw one of my best friends killed in a accident. And I'm not going to explain the details too much because I'm really conscious that there were other people there and involved, and it's not fodder for entertainment, but that's what you're talking about, right? And what I recall was a bunch of us involved. Years went on and something came up, and I was talking to those people, and they said, it was a tense moment about some sort of work thing. I know I'm being vague, right? Because I just don't want to go into the details of it out of courtesy for so many people. But they said, you remember what happened to our friend? And what had happened in that moment, this person had used that example to say safety. They'd said, we should have been safer. Now, another person, I later realised, was always down and said, well, you remember you didn't have that happen to you, right? Lose your friend, which I did. And for me, I was like, holy shit, you better fucking hang out with your friends because fuck. Like,
That's what you took from it.
right. So we all had the same trauma.
Mm.
But the trauma is in the meaning that you give it.
Correct.
And then if you took another example, I remember being first on the scene to see, I saw a woman. I'm also aware when I say this stuff, like there's people listening going, oh, that's set me off. Like I saw an accident on the side of the road. I got there first. And she basically had passed and I was first there. Now, other people later on came in and started doing CPR and stuff, but I'd made the call. This was no point. She's gone. But I had a conversation with her and I just said, hey, listen, it must be time. It must be time and your children will be okay. And this was your time on the planet and it's their time to have to lose a mum and whatever. Now, she's not alive at this point. She's passed. And then talking to my mate Dave later, who's an ambulance driver, he's going, yeah, what? You said goodbye. Is this the first time you'd seen something like this? I go, yeah. And he's like, what are you doing, Doc? Because I see this all the time. Like half the people I know, they go into trauma counselling for the next 12 years because of that. But once again, I'd done so much spiritual work on what I thought happened in life and explored it so much that I had a meaning for that. That meant that this was like a circle of life. And it's not that I was naive to the human pain, but yeah, I saw a beauty in it. And then I still had to, like, I was driving home after that and Dad called me by chance. He said, what you doing? I said, I just saw this. And he's like, do you reckon you should come over for a cup of tea? And I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah, probably. Like, I didn't really think I needed to, but I was aware that, oh yeah, that's a big thing, maybe, and it was good that I did. But I think like through my life, when those things happen, I've often wondered what is true. And when in conversation with God's got this model that says truth, joy, and love are all connected. And when you can't find one, look for the other. So what is true? And so, when you hear people say, oh, I finally found out that they're cheating on me, and they actually felt better knowing. So it's not good news, right?
Yeah,
but they're it makes sense. And if you can't find that, like, what is joyful? And is there joy here? And you can't see it. So then, well, can you feel any love? And you're looking for each one of them connected. And I think it's really important in a world where there's so much, clickbait basically is trying to trigger mild aggravation. And then we go, what's a fact? But when a fact is actually a fact, there's this ease, not aggravation, even though you don't like it. So when people are reading headlines and articles and they're getting irate, it's not true then. And there's not joy and there's not love. So this is like a devil in disguise. And then you've got to try to rationalize it. So that's another like path to find it. But you're trying to lean into what is true. So as a result, I do this with talent, especially if you're at an Olympic level and you miss a race and you just don't land something, a trick at the X Games or something. You got to be able to unpack it. And what I'm always trying to, when I dissect a failure, I'm trying to work out one. If something's happened, I want to keep thinking it through until it's got a meaning that's helpful to me. Now, at first, when I have that trauma, I want to retract. Like, when I get burnt by somebody or in business, I'm like, well, you know what? Fuck the world. Fuck them all. I'll just fucking do it myself. Like, fuck you all. And I'll just go, you know what? I don't fucking need it. I'll just go live in a fucking cave and live off bread. I don't fucking need it. Right? That's my first response, right?
Yeah, same.
And then I'll regress. And after I'll go, well, that's probably not super helpful. And I've got to keep thinking it through until that incident has a meaning that allows me to expand, not brush shit under the carpet.
Yeah.
And it's not always quick, but I would mention this, and B knows I talk about this, but when her mum passed, one of the things that was a real challenge for her is that she wondered if she should have called the ambulance earlier. And everyone was like, no, this and this and this. And when I saw her and she said that, I said, yeah, maybe. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, because if it's true that she should have, you want to know, because it might be difficult, but you don't want to ever make that mistake again, right? Now, as it played out, we were talking about it over a couple of days, and eventually we mentioned it. And somebody said, "What are you guys talking about?" And we explained it. And they said, no, don't you remember the ambulance driver said, geez, you're lucky because all the other ambulances on the road and we're the only one that could have had the whatever to keep her alive for this period. And so in actual fact, the timing had been perfect. We create an opportunity with a mum that she couldn't have had otherwise. So, but it was looking for what's true, and then B can land on that and then feel at ease and then build the next part of her worldview. Otherwise you carry a heaviness around for a long time.
So it's almost like allowing yourself to be curious and ask questions when anything happens. What do you think of the phrase, everything happens for a reason? I feel like it can, sometimes it doesn't land. I do agree with it, to be honest, but I also think that it can be maybe a little bit insensitive, particularly if somebody's just lost a loved one or is going through a big grief.
Yeah, well, I think there is like a universal connectivity and wisdom, but, a slogan like that, everything happens for a reason, sometimes people put a really shallow answer on top of that. And you go, oh, well, I guess then it means we got to go out for dinner on time or something, and you're like, it doesn't really feel satisfying. So I think there's a connectivity at play, and I really think that it's only at the end of a life that you can actually see the entire thread written. And so often we're trying to work out, hey, what is the storyline of my life, and what are the things I'm meant to do, and it's all good and proper until you get to the end, and depending on how that or when that person passes, it's only then that you can actually see the reason for everything. I don't know if we always know in the moment, but I think we are very quick to make a conclusion. Oh, I'm a shit person, or I should have sent that, or I should have called the ambulance, or I should have paid that bill. And you go, what's the motive for doing that? You can just make a too rapid a conclusion. Go, is that conclusion helpful? And even then, when we spoke about the things, the projects that you've got going on, often people just dangle an incorrect North Star in front of you and go, oh, this is what success is. And, in our conversations, like, it doesn't really work like that. Like, that's not really true.
Yeah.
It's a guess.
That's one of the things I really appreciate and value in your mentorship is that you're always very direct, even if I'm not going to like the answer, and you've never overpromised anything. In fact, you'll tell me how it is. Like even when we talk about, we're chatting about this on your podcast, when we actually came back into each other's lives, because we connected when I was much younger, and then I went off into my alcoholism for 2 decades, and then we didn't see each other again until 2019 when we bumped into each other on a rooftop in New York, and I was in full-blown alcoholism at this stage. And then it was just a brief interaction, pretty much a hi and bye, not too much. And then we reconnected again. How many years after? I want to say I think I was about 3 years sober. Oh, no. How was my brother?
No, it'd be about 4 or 5 because I had kids at that point, probably 4 years or so.
Yeah, that's about it. So about 4 years sober. And the first thing you said to me was, what was it? I can't remember.
Look, it was something along the lines of like, Ash, you used to be such hard work. Like, you were almost a bitch. Like, I love you now. You're awesome. And I gave you a big hug.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I just could see you were a real person. It was awesome.
But also
I was so happy. I came home, I was like, Brony, you understand? Like, Ash is awesome. I was like, she's done the work. She's actually done the work. She's not full of shit. I was like, she used to be so full of shit.
And I'm so grateful. And this is the thing about people like you who are so authentic and honest and direct. Because when you gave me that feedback, it was the part about being a pain in the ass was a bit hard to take.
I don't know if I said. I think I said you were full of shit. But anyway, something like that. It was some version of that, right? Yeah. And it was
But the kindness, it was. I knew it was genuine.
Yeah.
I knew it was genuine, and it meant the world.
Yeah.
And it's really nice when you're somebody who's in recovery, who's been doing the work for a number of years to get that kind of feedback, because you don't hear it a lot.
No.
Especially from people who knew you, the old version of you, and then meet you again.
Well, they hold on to that, and they tend to, they're remembering.
And what's really scary actually is sometimes I think about the people from my past who you know, because I did shitty things in my past life and behaviors, and part of 12-step recovery is we get to go back and make amends. But it's really interesting in step 9 when you go and make amends. My sponsor's really clear that I'm not to contact ex-boyfriends. She said, your amends is to leave them the fuck alone.
Right.
Which is really hard to do because, of course, the self-seeking part of me wants to go back to them and apologize and get their forgiveness, which is about me, right? Whereas it's not actually helpful for me to just knock on the door of their life. This has been maybe 15 years later. They've, you know, repartnered, got children. They don't need ex-girlfriend Ash giving them a call. And so it's been really hard for me to grapple with that because it's almost like I don't get to put a bow on that. And I know that their opinion of me is based in a foundation of a version of me that no longer exists. But then I have to be okay with that because I know who I am today.
Yeah, it is. That's a real challenge with human relationships. So I think, you're right. When we bumped into each other, I was able to see who you are now and know that who you were before was just like a growing pain. Like it was like the giraffe. It's like it's just until you find yourself.
Yeah. But you're really good at reading people's energy. Have you always been like that?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I've always had a knack for that.
You've got a good bullshit radar.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I do actually. And that was probably had that early. But also I think traveling for 10 years, you really find who you are. Like first time I traveled around Europe, I would go to every museum and see all the sites until eventually I realized that I was doing this because that's what I thought I should do. And I was going to explain to someone that I did all the right things until eventually I realized I just like walking around. Like I just want to walk around the city. And I had the most incredible experiences just by walking and then just not going to the museum. Unless I wanted to go to the museum. So you began to learn that. When Mum died, I believe there's a final parenting lesson that is something that you can only learn. Dad, listen to this. Anyway, there's something you can only learn from them once they're gone. And Mum was the life of the party. She was so funny. She could just hold the whole room. But she would come home and she would sort of think later, speak first and think later, and she would really hold herself. Her and I talked about it. She would just really hold herself account. Oh, I shouldn't have done this, and I always speak too much. And it was good when she passed. I started to see that was a wasted effort. She didn't need to do that, right? She just didn't need to. Like she contributed so much, and but I do that too. And there's a time when it's like a little audit where it's like anything, right? Like you're driving along and you make a mistake on the road and you think, gee whiz, and you start to debrief it, right? So there's a debrief element, but there is a social risk. And so when I say those things and I'm candid and it is kind, but it's clear, there's a bit of courage involved. And every time I'm taking a risk, and every time that person may not like me as a result, so but I've learnt to take that risk and then and to be okay with it. But then you can, as a leader, that's a leadership thing, because you're stepping into new territory, you can die by 1,000 cuts. And sometimes I feel like I'm too big for that room. There are some places I go and I just shouldn't be here. I'm too much. And I think a lot of people have that are good communicators. Then they go, oh, but there's other rooms, usually my clients, I'm not too much. Like, because they're in actual fact, the opposite is true. I spend so much of my time feeling so small because my clients are so capable. You're like, what am I even doing in the room? So I don't know where that's like. My dad is very blunt. He just says it, and I think it probably built the muscle in me because it became quite normal.
I think what I respect in it is the honesty, and in that if you're somebody who shows up consistently honest in your relationships and your day-to-day interactions, you build such a deep level of trust with the other person. Like, I know that I can go to you with anything and you're going to tell me how it is. So I trust you versus other people in my life who may just tell me what I want to hear. And because of that, there's a level of respect that comes with that. But also in doing that, it's like any other muscle. You work that muscle. You are so brutally honest with everyone else in your life. You become even more honest with yourself. And that, I believe, is the doorway to authenticity. If you want to know how to be more authentic, get fucking honest.
Yeah, like I'll do any personality indicator, and don't send them to me, everyone. But but I've done them, and I will read traits about myself that are really difficult. I remember one time, so I'm friends with Grant Hackett, and I've been involved with him in swimming and in business of bits and pieces. But like, he's self-made, doesn't need me much. But I remember doing this personality indicator one time, and it just, oh man, the feedback that it basically held a mirror to some things which I was sort of trying to hide, really, I guess. And I remember just reading, being pretty flat about it. And I texted Grant one night, and I said something about it, and I said, oh, yeah, like I just done this thing, and I said, I think I can see every one of my failings. And he goes, well, what are they? So I just cut and pasted and sent it to him, which is like showing someone your underwear drawer, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, they don't seem too bad to me. And that was really helpful because someone else doesn't actually see it as ugly as you do. You know, and but also we were used to that kind of conversation. Like, he and I have had some awesome conversations. He's got a lot of love in him, even separate to what his media brand is. Like, there's a lot of love in Grant and a lot of capability as well. But we'll have a Barney, but we'll also have that where because he's done the work as well. So as a result, you get to be able to you're not too much, right? But that's not on everything. I think, you know, with a husband or a wife or a best friend and or a boss, they're not going to be everything. Like, I've got a different person that I go to for different things.
So important.
Right. But I think that, like, back to that candor, which is critical in high performance, is the candor. It's not the honesty. I call it candid. But I'm not always proud of it. Like, even though it helps a lot of people, because I think I get a bit fatigued. What happens is I'll go into a company and they haven't had enough courage to do some things. So it'll fall on me. So I have to have all these conversations, and then my wife will be like, I said to my brother one time, I was like, fuck, I'm so sick of these fucking difficult conversations. And she said, unfortunately, you're just really good at it. I'm like, yeah. So I think, you know, like you with the sobriety, and I gave you that feedback, I don't know that I always get the feedback that I had done the right thing with that.
Yeah.
So if I'm at an audience and they all clap, it means nothing because they're meant to clap.
Of course. It's almost like built in.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, great. So then you go home and you think through, you got a vulnerability hangover because you're like, geez, I said that. So there's not, you know, you take these risks for people, but you don't always know that you did the right thing. Yeah. You just don't know.
Yeah. And I guess then you've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to put your head on the pillow and be okay with the man that you were on any given day.
Yeah, I think I am, except as a dad. It's just so hard. It's so hard. There's parents out there, like, you know, like, I think my sister Tanya was so funny about this. She goes, this parenting thing's bullshit. Like, everyone tells you it's great and you cross over and they go, see, no, you're fucked too.
This is what I've heard.
Right? So it's not like you go, oh, I don't want the kids, because I love them. It's amazing. But at work, I can stay in my lane. Yeah. With kids, you can't. You don't. You have to put Tupperware away. Like, I have to put the Tupperware. I can't do it. And I said to B sometimes, I go, if somebody was to, like, threaten our family physically, I would just become a beast.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, this beast is fucking shackled up. I said to Grant one time, I said, I take a bullet for my kids, but nobody's shooting at us. So So, so I'm much more critical. And I intellectually know that my kids just need to know they're loved, and all the other things really they've got to get a dad's love. That's it at its core.
Yeah.
The thing that I can do is make sure they've got a dad's love. But that being said, you can't help constantly notice, when you are failing. So that's, yeah.
And it's someone who is a high performance coach.
Yeah.
I imagine the pressure and the expectation you put on yourself is quite high.
Yeah, it is. It's to get it right. I'm lazy. Like I'm like a dog. I want to sleep when I want to sleep, run when I want to run, eat when I want to eat. Like that's how I think. So I'm about doing it in my nature. So it's not about everything being perfect, but you do try to work out, okay, what's the core of this so I can essentially get it right. And I certainly don't sell perfection. I just think it's a fool's gold, and I don't do life coaching because I don't know how to get life right. Usually it's someone's got a specific goal and we can work on it. But I do have a brain that is very good at working out what is the critical action. And, when you're parenting, it's just a constant moving beast. And you go, well, that was a critical action yesterday, but this kid's 2 days older now and they can do this. It's hard.
I admire the parents out there. It certainly looks hard. I hear it's the most rewarding and thankless job you'll ever have.
Yeah, something like that. But I don't know how we got onto it. But anyway, luckily you're in charge of the interview. So
That's right. Well, we are heading towards the end of our conversation here today, Dobbo, and I've loved every minute of it. But we do have a closing tradition on the show.
God, you don't give me the heads up about these things. I asked you, well, what are we going to do? And you're like, oh, it'll be great. Bring a photo.
What is wrong with it?
Turns out there's a few questions. Go on.
I just want to know, what are your 3 non-negotiables that allow you to live your life today happy, authentic, and free?
I'm always aware of what is brave and what is kind, and I'm just going to do the right thing. So I'm just going to do the right thing, and I'm always looking for that. What's the right thing? But that being said, I'm doing it my way because I cannot win in any other way. I have to be authentic to me, right? So I'm always going to do what's brave and kind. I'm not just going to go along with things because everybody's doing it. I'll always look for my version, so I don't overpromise. I never say to someone, I'll email you back, because I won't email you back and I won't even answer my phone, so I don't promise things. And I only really give a fuck about my family. So I'm invested in whatever you're working on. And the thing is, like I know with Ananda, my business partner on this, we realize that we get really invested. So if someone says, hey, this is the goal, we're in. We are so in. And the second they're not invested, we're out, because you said at the start of the show about boundaries. I find that I actually don't. Once I'm invested, I will do whatever it takes within, like, when I say whatever it takes, like I just really care, and I'll ride the waves. I don't just step back from it. So I'm invested, but then if you're not invested, I'm out. And at that point, it's just about family then. Like, and also I can't threaten family. And I've said to my business partners before, like, hey, this is starting to make my family a bit wobbly. It's less happiness. So if that happened, I would dump the millions of dollars and just go, fuck it.
Yeah.
I would. And I would. And they know I would. And it's not a threat. It's just like, so we should fix it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Was that an all right 3?
I love that. That's a perfect 3. Thank you so much. Well, not perfect because we don't strive for perfection over here, but that was a bloody brilliant 3. Now, you mentioned that you're probably not going to answer emails or answer the phone, but is there any way that you'd like people to be able to track you down, maybe a website, find your books?
Please don't follow me.
Okay. Well, do you even have social media?
No.
You're like the anti-social media guy,
Yeah.
which I also love and respect.
Yeah. So what I do is, like, for my community, of which you're in, right, I will text those people and I go, hey, this person might be about to win this medal. You should watch this and this. Like, I'm sincerely social. And I don't do any coaching, but if those people who own a business and you feel like you're moving into the next era, I created a business group where I coach those people progressively through a year. And people could reach out. They can have the website, which is my nickname, Dobbo, which your dad told me it should be, Dobbo, because he used to be innatesolutions.com.au, and he goes, no one's going to remember that. It should be your nickname. And I was like, it's so arrogant. And he goes, well, I got $200 million. How much money do you have? And I was like, oh, shit. So he goes to me, did I really say that? I said, you did. He goes, oh, God, I used to say that stuff. but it's Dobbo with dobbo.com.au, and there are a bunch of the books there. There's a bunch of courses there. The micro library's there. There's a whole lot of resources, but and that's the only way I actually communicate with people is through that database.
Awesome. I will link that in the show notes. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So thank you so much for being here today.
It's done.
See you, Dobbo.